Hello, hello, hello. I feel like I have not done this for a long time, but it's Venus retrograde. And I've been saying to people, like, I need to put some information out there about Venus retrograde. I'm missing all these really pertinent dates and times and things that people should be paying attention to. But I had like brain block. And it wasn't until yesterday when I sat down, I don't know, like 2 o'clock until about 10 o'clock at night, that I just really started researching and pondering the energies and got hit after hit after hit. And the story came, and I should have known, like, it's what's been in my field anyway. I should have known, but I hadn't done the research. I hadn't really sat down. All I kept saying to people was, clearly Pluto's important. Chiron is important. He is at play. Don't know why. And what was the other one? I was saying Mercury. There's a few more that are important as well that I started thinking about yesterday. And voila, the story is revealed, right? Which is really cool. And then the energies back it up. This is going to be a long video. So do dishes or sit and watch it if you want. It's not going to be date heavy. I'm just not going to do that. There will be astrology language in it, yet I will always explain what that means. So if you don't know astrology language, that's fine. Energy is energy, and that's what astrology is. And what that creates is a feeling or a situation or an action, and that's what's behind when I'm always talking about energies and whatnot. What's important to remember, one of the most important things I feel like to remember when we are entering a new retrograde, right? Every planet goes retrograde. We all hear about Mercury retrograde, but they all do it. And I'm not even going to get into the, the sciencey. It's not really going backwards. Who cares, right? It's what it feels like. One of the most important things when you're entering that with any energy is to go back to that same energy's last cycle. I call these cycles of change in life. And what I'm going to speak to is the general one, because we don't have your chart in front of me or your specific and unique energies. We have just what's going on for the collective, for the whole. Now, that is always going to apply to everyone. And then we get down to the nitty-gritty of your stuff in your sessions, and that's when it's just so much more awesome and beautiful. The general's awesome and beautiful as well. Just not as. It's like way cooler. Because we can speak to yours. And those are some of my most powerful sessions I've been having lately, is when I've been taking these cycles of change, which can feel really hard. They can feel like your hair's being pulled out, or your teeth, or something, and there's a way to go, but you're just not quite sure what it is. And what these awesome days do, if you track them, is give you clues, so that when you are hit with the time, because there is a time there, that's called the integration period, the act on what you learned time, to see what happens, see if you're right, and then go on from there. So it's not like you're just, sometimes you feel like you're just being thrown to the wind and you just don't really know whether to turn right or to turn left. As I have tracked these, I call them, again, life cycles of change, and they're different for every energy. You kind of know what way to go. And it's awesome. It makes you feel so powerful in your life. I feel like I've just jumped into these, really directing them. You can't direct them on the first and second. We're going to get into all that. But on the 3rd, you can. And it's like, oh, I know I'm approaching this and I know which way to turn. Anyway, super cool. I don't want to digress. I get all excited about it, but I've been doing it more so the past year and more so with Mercury retrogrades because they're so much more frequent. And man, I'm starting to love them. And I love my sessions on them, which, just so you know, there is a session on my website, www.astrologysoul.com, for Venus retrograde, which is what I'm going to talk about. Then I also have one on there for Mercury retrograde because that actually starts December 29th. And I'm having a sale through December 31st. So it's 20% off any of my services. 2020 is the promo code. I've been being told it's cycling through and not going all the way through. If that happens, please message me and I will just schedule you myself. I've had a lot go through, but I've had enough people say to me, you know, it didn't finish the transaction, that I need to get in touch with my web people, but I don't want you to miss out. I'm also now offering follow-ups on all of my sessions. So if you book within 3 months of your original session, it's a cheaper price. I'm like, I go get a fill on my eyelashes and I get a fill on my nails, not me, other people. You go check in with your psychologist, and this is just therapy with a cheat sheet. So I thought that would be a cool thing to offer, as long as it's within, if I don't get into my lash girl within, I don't know, a month, I have to start over. So it's within 3 months of your session. And you get, I think it's like $50 off depending what session you have. So I'm also, with this information, and I'm just getting all the, business out of the way. I could have done a class on this. Once I got into it yesterday and even today, I pondered the thought, should I? Should I not? Should I just do a class? Should I not? And just thought, no, what I'm going to do is do a class on Mercury retrograde on January 4th. And the link will be underneath. So that's a Tuesday, and it will be Tuesday night. And we'll throw some of the details. I could have done so much more for this Venus one. And some of that we'll throw in there because they're very closely connected. They are just very closely connected. So we'll do that on January 4th, 2022 in the evening, and the link will be underneath. So let's get back to one of the things I said was the most important parts of a retrograde. I have found, and I am passionate about these because I think they're the core to our life changes and learning and growing as a person and learning how to love ourselves and embrace all of us. And that's our tagline, embrace all of you, because none of us are perfect. We're all just going on this wave, surfing along, making changes here and there. And the timing with energy is incredibly accurate. My mouse still drops. So one of the biggest things to look at, I've said that, 5 times now, is the last one, the last cycle. And since we're talking Venus, what is Venus about? So most importantly, Venus is about relationships with other people and how that adds or takes away from your self-value. So we could even flip-flop that. Venus is most important about your own self-value and how that affects relationships with other people. We're all in relation with others. And this is the way we go about it. We have people we are in love relationships with, and then there are people like our therapists or our energy people that we have relationships, and then there are friends. And Venus is mostly about love relationships and partnerships and how we feel about ourselves. And then with that, what we surround ourselves with and the resources or money that we have to provide ourselves with what we want. It all goes back actually to, I believe, to self-esteem. And if we understand how worthy we are, we're all such badasses, no matter what, even in our faults. I hear so many people trying to get perfect. Guess what? Newsflash, you're never going to be perfect, because as soon as you feel like you get to a point, you're going to be pushed literally to learn again, grow on that. And so understanding we are perfect exactly how we are in our faults and flaws is the most pivotal thing in life I feel like you can get to. And that's Venus. And that affects how you treat other people. And that affects what you do in relationships with other people. It is, that thumbprint of what you do, how you do it. And sometimes, it's messy and you're really not great at it. And then other times it's awesome and you feel like you're doing better. You're like, okay, I do love myself. So the last time Venus was retrograde was, let's see, it started April 9th of 2020 and ended May 13th of 2020, and it was in the sign of Gemini. And what I recall, hopefully I have glasses here somewhere because we know I'm going to need them. What I recall about that retrograde, I didn't go back and study hugely, but what I recall the most is it was square Neptune. Okay, so what does that mean? Square is it feels conflicting inside of you. It doesn't feel good. And Neptune is about how we see things. And if we see things clearly, mystically, in a spiritual way, or if we're kind of muddled in some illusions and delusions. And a square would say, okay, through self-esteem, Venus, I'm going to help you find resources, Gemini, because it was in Gemini, and learn how to see not in such black and white terms. Learn how to see that there's different colors everywhere and there's so much in between. And I'm going to teach you kind of within conflict inside yourself what's real and what's not. What's delusion as far as how you look at love and what's real. So now we're building on that. Did you figure that out? Do you feel like in the past year and a half, you've been kind of like, oh, I have some delusions there. That's melting away. Oh, I'm maybe starting to see things, how I act a little more clearly, or what I do as far as relationships and how I am approaching them. Am I seeing my delusions? Am I seeing where I'm just kind of being foggy and it's not quite real? It might feel good, and I go to this place because of how good it feels, but is it real? And that's kind of what this retrograde is speaking to. What wounds are you approaching relationships with that you were conditioned with and taught that you are now transforming? Pluto's one of the main players. So Neptune is a player. Neptune's still here. But I'd say Pluto's and Chiron probably one of the main players. So now that you've been able, hopefully, to work through that in the past year and a half, the retrograde time is the most potent for sure. And then you kind of ponder that till the next one happens. And the next Venus retrograde has started happening. So now the theme flows. It flows from the old theme into a new one, but they work together, which is so cool, So now it's time to transform. Now it's time to do it in a different way. Now it's time to get honest and real about where those delusions came from, where those illusions were, how we're acting from kind of wounds, and maybe making identity a wound through the victim mentality. And Pluto's saying, time to dive into the depths of darkness, into the unknown, which we're all scared of the unknown, and change. Do you have the courage? Do you have that ability to see and do it and become an individual away from what you were conditioned and dogma has taught you? Now, I'm going to break it down into energies, but right in there, I've talked about Chiron, I've talked about Aries, I've talked about Capricorn, Pluto, Venus, Neptune. Haven't really hit Uranus yet, but Uranus is a player here too. Uranus and Taurus. So now we're going to dissect all those and get to the nitty gritty of it, because we're building from the last one. Now, here are some other retrograde dates, and I may list some of this. It's always good to go back if you keep a journal or whatever and be like, oh, that one, oh, that one, oh, that one. And then also Venus retrogrades happen. They repeat in pretty much the same place in your unique energy and in the sky every 8 years, at pretty much the same place. So you'll find themes there too. So the every 8 years, so you'll go now, we're 2021, and you'll go to you can go back to 2013 and you'll see some of these same things. 2005, 1997, 1989, and you can go back further than that if you want. Venus retrogrades have happened. This one happens from November 17th to March 1st, 2022. It happened before that on April 9th of 2020 to May 13th of 2020. I don't know if I believe that. That cannot be right. Don't quote me on that date. I'll put it in the comments. What's real? Then it was September 2nd of 2018 to December 17th of 2018. Before that, we had January 30th of 2017 to May 8th of 2017. If those days are right, I looked those up on Cafe Astrology in the retrograde section. So I know for sure one did not go from April to May in 2020. So it went way longer. It went to the end of July. I know that for sure. So yeah, I'll look it up and put it in the thing. So if you can track all those and understand, if you're a journal person and want to, that's too much work for me. But that is, so you can see like Venus retrogrades about every year and a half. She retrogrades the least of all planets because it is just every year and a half. Most planets retrograde at least once a year. And then we have Mercury that does it 3 to 4 times a year. But Mercuries are so important because Mercury brings all of these life cycles of change and the growth you've done on them since the last Mercury retrograde and the cycles going on right then, and it brings it into your conscious mind. That's what Mercury is, your conscious mind. So we really need Mercury retrogrades 3 to 4 times a year because our brain needs to kind of catch up on what's going on inside, inwardly, with those types of conversations and situations in our life. So when we think of Venus, again, we're thinking of love, we're thinking of relationships, we're thinking of esteem, money, those types of things. And so what Venus is doing as she's coming into this part of the sky to then go retrograde is she's highlighting certain energies. She's triggering certain conversations already happening. And that's what creates the theme of the retrograde. So in this one, like I said, Chiron's here, triggering Chiron, triggering Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. We will talk about all of those one at a time, I think. We'll just go through those and then kind of conclude with like a bigger theme. So the important Venus retrograde dates are November 17th was the setup. It started the setup. So that means it's going to show us what the themes are in our life. There's not really a whole lot you can do in that time frame other than watch what happens. You can know what the energies are, but you're not really directing anything. You're being set up to get information, to get more knowledge, to go inside and think and percolate and review what you think love is for you. It's kind of like I kept doing in my head the fortune cookie thing, where people open fortune cookies and read it and say like, I don't know, you're going to get a new car. And then they always add insects or something at the end. So as I was doing these, I was like, in love. You're going to transform in love. How are you getting these split-second authenticating moments in love? That's what Venus does. And that's what I'm going to concentrate. I want you to concentrate on in you, in self-esteem. So say that as well. In self-esteem. That absolutely affects love and any relationships. The way you feel about yourself affects all relationships you have, especially your love relationships. On the 19th, which was yesterday, which I found it so cool that I finally turned on to wanting to study this, Venus went backwards. And that's what's called the retrograde. On the 8th of January, it's called the midpoint. And that's when Venus and the sun come together in the sky. The sun's representative of you, who you are, your identity, how you're moving forward, the goals you set to get to in this life, and how you're getting to them in love. So that will be a pertinent day. Write that down. Then on the 29th of January, we go into the integration phase. Other astrologers call this shadow. I call this, now we integrate. Now we've got some information. Now we experiment with the information we have and approach situations with a educated guess and see what happens. Does it go smoothly? Does it blow up? What does the universe say? It's kind of like we're taking a quiz now, which it's like, did I get it right? Is it like, you're wrong, go the other direction? Or, you got it. We're working smoothly now. That's what happens in the integration phase. And to be honest, the integration phase is the hardest. People would think if they got their answers, it wouldn't be, but you're still kind of guessing, right? But you know how to approach a situation. You're like, okay, on date A, this happened. And on date B, this happened. Now we're coming to date C because there's 3 parts of every retrograde. So there's always part A, part B, part C. And in part C is when you're kind of taking the test. Did I get it? Did I not? Am I going to ignore it? Make it a little harder for myself later? The cool thing about the universe is it brings it back. Like if you don't get it, you will get another chance. Is it going to take you longer? Maybe, maybe. I don't really know how all that works, honestly. Like, I'd be like, yeah, it'll probably take you longer, but maybe that's what you need. Maybe that's what's best for you and your wiring. So maybe that is what's perfect for you. You know, I don't know all that. So then on March 1st, your journey is concluded. Other than now we carry that energy to the next retrograde. We're still going to be looking at what wounds do we have that are affecting our relationships, that are delusions, that maybe dogma or we were conditioned with, or religion or parents or someone taught us that we don't even know we're working from. And we're still kind of sorting all that out with the information we got during the retrograde, front and center, until the 19th of June, 2023, when she begins a new phase. So this is a pretty, if you look at it and you're like, okay, Mercury brings us new information every 3 to 4 times a year. You know, Saturn does this once a year. So we're figuring out where to work and where to climb the mountain. Jupiter does this once a year. We're figuring out our potential and where to plant some seeds. You know, we can all work through these. Venus only does this once every 1.5 years. So loves and relationships and self-esteem, it needs a little more time to percolate and get through. We get a little more time, which tells us it's a pretty intricate situation. Love, self-esteem. How am I going to do this? Means it takes a little longer. You know, that's okay. I see people, you know, jumping in and out of relationships, and I could be biased because that's just not how I'm wired, but it's like, it takes a little longer. Real love and forming true relationships, showing who you really are and your self-esteem and how confident you are in making decisions, you're showing stuff. It's complicated. It takes time. So this only happens once every 1.5 years. I find that very interesting. So I thought it was funny as I was working out this morning, and I'm thinking about doing this video, and I don't know. I'm kind of goofy. I don't seem goofy. I keep that side reserved. But I started singing Dora the Explorer songs. I didn't even really realize it. And picturing that, because I'm like, it's like such a journey. And you leave your house or your place and you take your map, which is, you know, the astrology printout of where you're going and what you're doing. And you have your backpack because you're heading out on this journey. So you have stuff with you. And that's kind of, I really started symbolically thinking of it that way. And I know I've explained retrogrades a lot of different ways. And so that's the way I'm explaining it today. Adore, explore, adventure. So here we are. We're at home. And our friend calls us and says, hey, I left my Venus love, relationship, self-esteem, whatever shoes at your house. Can you bring them to me? You're like, sure. So you throw them in your backpack and you grab some water, whatever, some snacks if it's going to be a while. And just figure this is what I'm doing. I'm going to head out on this journey of taking my friend's love, self-esteem, whatever, shoes back to her. So that's the setup period. That is the 17th of November. And we started down this road. Right then, we started down this road. with Venus squaring Chiron in Aries. So Chiron is a very dominant energy in this retrograde. It shows up on every important date I just told you. From the 17th of November, the 19th of December, the 8th, it shows up somehow. And what that is, it's a square is a hard feeling. So as you're walking down the street with your backpack on, starting your journey, all excited, you get like this conflicting feeling of like, oh, God, Chiron represents, wounds and something that hasn't really felt good in your life. And so you see this house at this horrible angle, and it just gives you this yucky feeling of like, God, that hurt. Why did that hurt in love? I'm feeling like a wound is there and I'm reacting to it. So that's interesting. And you keep going. You keep going on your way, and then you hit this other house that's at a different angle. This is Uranus, a Uranus trine, which feels better. So you're like, oh, wow. I just got hit with some energy. Uranus. Uranus says, I'm going to authenticate you. I'm going to give you these zaps of electricity that help you on your way in love and self-esteem and relationships. And it's a trine. So you may not even see this path in your journey. It may just work so easily that you didn't even notice that it happened. And that was on the 18th of November. Now, the crazy thing, because what this does, it does highlight Uranus in Taurus. So you may be a little stuck. And what Uranus is trying to do in Taurus is unzap you. Taurus is very slow. It is a very fixed sign. It's like trying to push a mountain. So usually Tauruses move slow. They change their mind in their own rate. So I know I was listening to an astrologer one time, and he said, if you want to go to a movie with someone who has dominant Taurus, this is how you need to approach it. At some point, I'd like to see this movie. If you ever feel like it, will you let me know? Because it's about timing. Taurus is about timing. So that also means in relationships, that means a lot of patience. So if you have a dominant Taurus sun or moon in your house, in your life, or in someone you're related to, relationship with, or related to, whatever, Uranus is working on them right now to zap them into changing a certain way they think in relationships and love with this Venus retrograde. Okay, this is specifically Venus retrograde. They could have other things in their chart, but if they have dominant sun, moon, something like that, Venus is working on them in a pretty easy way. It was a trine. So a lot of times you don't notice they're happening, but if you do, you can ask yourself, this is a time when you would ask yourself during this whole retrograde, am I stuck somewhere in love? Am I like a mountain that's sitting somewhere, not really letting myself see because I'm just so comfortable and at peace here, which is a Taurus thing. I just want to be comfortable. I just want to be in my place. I just want to have my stuff around me. So if we're talking about pushing through wounds and Chiron things, Taurus isn't going to want to look at those at all. They just want to stay in their comfortable place. Whatever answer they've been giving you for years, they're still giving you. But Venus is trying to say, hey, zap out of this. Figure it out. I'm doing it nice, but come on, if it doesn't happen, if you don't work with me, the universe continues to flow and I no longer do nice. Now I bring you a square or an opposition or a conjunction, all things that don't feel as good. Then we moved on to Neptune. This is Venus. This is Venus's path to her house, to her friend's house, giving her shoes. So Neptune's in Pisces right now. And that's the planet that Venus talked to the most in her last retrograde. But now we're not in a hard, conflicting conversation. We're in an easier one that just takes a little bit of tweaking. So what Venus is saying is, did you get it from the last time? Did you get it? And now that you've kind of got it and you're onto it because it didn't feel so good. Now in a sextile, it's what's called a sextile, we just need to move a little bit to help. So the delusion may still be there. The illusion, the non-reality, because we're talking Neptune and Pisces, the wanting to avoid looking at it and going to other things, that may still be there. But if you choose, you will be able to look at it. So why do I keep talking about looking at it and conditioning? I don't think I spoke to just Venus and Capricorn. So Capricorn is about legacy, reputation, what you've been taught, logic, work, really working on things. That's where I go. But Capricorn is very logical. And when you're dealing with Capricorn, what you're trying to work through is, what have I been conditioned to believe? What do I just think I believe? What is the dogma here? What is something that's just so in me that I haven't even thought about because it's so conditioned? So now we're talking about love things. How do you act in relationships that are so conditioned, that are from when you were so young and you watched your parents? That would be a Capricorn theme. You watched whatever you watched that related to relationships, as far as parents, religious dogma, any sort of authority that you thought that is now stuck in you. When you're in a Capricorn Venus retrograde, you're saying, okay, what did you learn in love at a young age that really doesn't apply? And I'm trying to zap you, Uranus, into moving that firm thought process. And I'm trying to have you negotiate that delusion, Pisces, Neptune, a little bit. And you're feeling some wounding. You're feeling like, oh my God, at a young age, I got hurt this way. Now, we all get hurt as children. I have hurt my children multiple ways they will have to work through as adults. I know it. I tried. I did my best. So you can have the best intentioned parents all the way to the worst adult influences growing up. You're carrying some of those pains. You have been conditioned to protect yourself. And you've used delusions and illusions and staying firm and not looking at it to stay alive and protect yourself. It was needed. Like, it's not a bad thing. It helped you survive to get you where you are now. What this retrograde is saying is now it's time to shed this. And it's saying that because Pluto is probably the main player. And Pluto is transformation. Pluto is something has to die to be reborn. So when I talk about Pluto in my sessions, I talk about imagining a forest, this forest that has grown and has this foundation and this system, and it has this story about this is how I stay alive. This is how I grow my forest. This is so you are the forest. And then a spark comes out of the blue. And what do? You're sitting, you're trying to get off. This is uncomfortable. I don't want to start on fire. But what Pluto does is start you on fire and burns those stories to the ground. It says, get rid of these. They are no longer serving you in love, in your self-esteem, in relationships, with delusions, illusions, Neptune, with wounding that you got as a young person, Chiron, and with staying too firm and not becoming truly authentic, Uranus in Taurus. So then what happens with Pluto is you start regrowing, you start changing, but it's a trust and control situation in love. Are you trying to control your love, or are you just trusting? Are you surrendering? Are you opening up to something that could be new and transforming? Now that could go in relationships. Whenever people talk to me about relationships and marriages, I've given this advice so many times. And marriages, relationships, dating, you want to wait. You want to wait. You think you're making decisions, but you really don't know. You really do not know what's going on until the 1st of March, and then make a decision. I remember someone it's really close to was like on the brink of divorce, and then Venus retrograde hit, and they were like, oh my gosh, my spouse has changed so much. Like, I don't think I'm going to go through with this. I was like, just wait. I'm not saying you will go through with it. I'm not saying you won't go through with it. What I am saying is you are getting an update in love and relationships and who you are as far as self-esteem now. That's all I'm saying. You're getting an update. And if you follow these energies, you will find some answers. So it's irrelevant if she got divorced or not. But I'm glad I gave her that advice. And I continue to do that with Venus retrogrades and Mercury retrogrades. They just happen more. So with Pluto, you kind of have to jump into the abyss. What is a way you haven't acted before, or something that you just haven't trusted before? Now that could be trusting the relationship, or that could be trusting walking away, right? Just something's gonna die. It's either gonna die, you're either gonna change and transform into a new way of thinking and not be so scared with your wounds, which is really hard, like hard to do. I'm not even. But at the bottom of this retrograde, the whole, I would say, base of it is, what are you running from? What happened when you were younger? What did you see? What stories have you made up? How scared are you of making some choices that would totally turn you in a different direction that you haven't done? These are things you just have not done. So if you're wanting clues, look at your life and look at the patterns you have run with your spouse, with dating, with I would say look at those first. What patterns have you run? with those, because it's going to give you a clue in to what your wounds are and what you're trying to avoid, because we always run back to those behaviors because we don't want to face what we're trying to avoid, right? We are scared of the unknown. It's a brand new way of living. And Pluto's right here saying, you have a brand new way of living in love. But you have to really look at yourself and go, what delusions do I have? What fantasies do I go to? What are my wounds in this area? Because all of these are working together. And then where am I staying so firm that really, to be authentic, I need to change it up? So you've hit all those houses on the way. I'm not going to go into them as much. You have your little backpack. You finally get to your friend's house and you open up your backpack and you're like, here are your love shoes. I'm so excited. It is the 19th of December and I got here. I'm delivering your shoes to you and you realize you only have one. So you're like, oh crap, that was quite a journey so far. Wow, there was a lot. Plus we have holidays happening and there's other things going on in the universe that are affecting me. And now I have to go back and rethink all these things. And that's the retrograde phase. Now you're going back and we're hitting certain dates again, with the same themes, to rethink what happened the first time and to give us a coupling of experiences. You'll have some of the same experiences come. And this is what I do with clients in sessions. We do the setup and we have a session and we go over their dates. And then we get to the retrograde part and we go over their dates. And then we do, as soon as it goes direct, we go over into the integration direct phase, we go over their dates again. But what we do in that session is put together phase A and phase B, like the walk to the friend's house and the walk back home. And then you're walking to the friend's house again to give them the other shoe. So they have a pair of them. They have both of their shoes. And you kind of already have an idea. You're like, I walked there once. I walked back and I saw the same houses, the same, Chiron, Neptune, Uranus. I saw the same. I know Pluto's here. I know I'm kind of changing, so it feels a little shadowy. I have some shadow stuff coming up. I'm really looking. Hopefully you're really looking at yourself. And so the third time you're like, well, I know I'm going to hit Chiron. So I know some of these wounds are going to come up. And when they do, I've kind of realized, hey, this is what I do to avoid change, because Uranus is the next one, right? Which is the change. So I know I do this. I know I run to this place to avoid change. So I'm going to approach it this way. I'm going to approach this wound this way. And it is in Aries. So that means it's an energy of becoming an individual, understanding what I need to do, and taking action. Aries is a very action-oriented and courageous sign, very spontaneous as well. So when the situation comes up with Chiron in Aries, it's about taking courageous action. So probably not reacting to the wound, because you already have a lot of it figured out. This is the third pass of all of them. Then it hits the Uranus again as you walk back to your friends, that zap of knowing. And you're like, ah, yeah, I'm not going to stay as firm here. If someone asks me a question about love or whatever, I'm not going to give the same answer and do the same patterns I've been doing for years, because Uranus is telling me, get real, be a little more authentic. You can shift a little bit. That's what Uranus and Taurus is saying. Like, I'm going to keep electrifying you till you get it in your head. You can shift a little bit and just become more authentic. Taurus is an awesome, I love Taurus because it's so about just having all your comforts around you and being really comfortable. And I am so that. You should see my house with blankets and pillows and stuff and smells, all that stuff, the 5 senses. But Uranus is here in a 7-year period trying to get us to shift that a bit. Then it moves to Neptune again. And so on your third pass, you're saying, hey, okay, I saw the wounding and I took action and I was courageous and I decided to shift a little bit. I decided to get a little more authentic in the way that I do love. And now I'm hitting Neptune and I'm going to feel myself wanting to move into that fantasy, that delusion, possibly that addiction, because God, this is freaking hard. And it doesn't feel all that great. It feels hard. The integration time, the time to take action is the hardest time. And it's like, no, I'm going to stay clear. I'm going to go to my mystical side. I'm going to speak to God. I'm going to pray. I'm going to ask for help. I'm going to ask to stay grounded in what's mystically real, so spiritually real, because that is a thing, versus jumping back into that fantasy that I've had about my younger years where I created my wounds and I don't want to change. It's saying that. And then on the way out, Venus hits Pluto again. It says, so did you do it? Did you transform? Are you growing a new forest? Are you not as weighed down by all that Capricorn dogma and structure that you were conditioned with, and your parents and any authority you had when you were young telling you how you had to do love or think about love? Have you released that and let it go? And then Venus moves on, and we have that to percolate on until June of 2023 when we get a new update. So I hope all of that made sense. A date I do really want to point out to you is the 8th. We're going to get a little statty here. The 8th of January is the midpoint, and I think I spoke to that. That's a day that will really bring you information because the sun is there. It's kind of a reset with Venus as well. And I know a lot of other astrologers put a lot of importance on that, and it is important. Why it's important to me is because Venus comes together with who we are. The sun to me represents our goals for this lifetime, where we wanted to go, what we wanted to do. And so it's our identity, our healthy identity. It's getting there. And Capricorn is a goal-oriented sign. So it is, am I reaching these goals? And it's developmental. We are not just born our sun. It actually represents a lot of the strife we go through inside as we elevate it more and more and more. Like, I know I absolutely was born my sun sign because all of you were. But it also symbolizes a lot of the shit I've gone through and had to work through in life to elevate this sign to get there. If you want to know what you came in doing well, you look at your moon sign. Now that can always go into hard places as well if you're not honoring it, but that's kind of a place you go just naturally. And if you need to be emotionally taken care of, that's where you go, to your moon. Your sun is a little more agitated. So when the sun and Venus comes together, you're going to be a little agitated within your identity. Am I doing relationships and love and self-esteem and whatnot how I want to be doing it? Now there are some other, I think something's going on that day. Dang it, I wish I had my, I'm going to look real quick. I think there's more than just that on the 8th. So you have to look at all those. No, those are just mine. So Pluto and Venus have been sitting together. They sat together for a good month from the new moon solar eclipse to, they will be like within 2 to 3 degrees of each other until the new moon in, I think it's January 4th. So that transformation energy, that dive into the depths of hell and learn how to see in the dark, learn how to do something new, learn how to do something different and change. That's there for everyone for a good month. And right, it's crazy because at that exact same time, since Venus squared Chiron, Chiron has stayed at the same degree. So what happens, because Chiron is stationing direct the same day Venus goes retrograde. I don't know if I said that. If I did, I'm sorry. But within like 6 hours, like Venus goes retrograde, the exact same day, 6 hours later, Chiron goes direct. So Chiron's now moving into his integration phase as Venus is moving into her, okay, we need to review love. How are we going to do this? So that means they have both basically been sitting still, vibrating symbolically in their most potent energies possible. There, you know, it's like, think about when you're trying, if you're zooming down the freeway and you have to stop the car and go backwards, like the momentum you're going and then and all that energy that omits from that. That's what that feels like. So Chiron will actually stay that energy till the end of January at that degree. So he's a big player here as well as Pluto. Like I've talked about all of them. And I'm going to bring all that into the Mercury retrograde class that I'm going to do on January 4th, because that's pivotal, right? That is your mind catching up, and it's actually sandwiched within the Venus retrograde. It starts the 29th of December, retrogrades the 14th of January. The midpoint for that is the 23rd of January. The 3rd of February is when it goes direct and says, hey, start making some moves now. So the integration period, and then the 24th is when it leaves. So we have the 24th of February and March 1st. We're going to be getting a lot of information. You know, Christmas Day, I believe, for people who celebrate Christmas, is the second Pluto-Venus conjunction. Yeah. So the first one was December 11th. The second one's December 25th. And the third one is March 3rd. So right after. And it is really asking us to transform that love in a new, deep way for ourselves and with others. So please join me. I'll put more of the dates if you want to look at them in the explanation, and please join me for the Mercury Retrograde Life Cycle of Change class on January 4th. It will be amazing. And as you start to track these things in your life and watch what happens with other people, because other people are going through it, and then you have your own unique energy. And if we have time at the end of that class, we'll pull up charts for people to really speak to how it's going to affect them and the theme that's going on. So the theme will be general for everyone. And then how is it affecting you on an individual level? I hope you join me. Again, the code is 2020 for 20% off of any of my offerings right now on my webpage, astrologyandsoul.com. Thank you for listening and doing your dishes. I appreciate all your love. I get so much love from you guys. It's just wonderful. I love you very much, and I will see you soon. Bye.